Hey, today we're talking about the new shotgun Felwinters Lie. Well, kind of new. I guess new to Destiny 2. This thing is really good, it's very consistent, and I don't think it's game breaking, although I bet you it'll result in a nerf because now everyone has it. If you want a lot more info so you can understand in depth on how they change shotguns come Season of the Worthy, I highly recommend you check out the video that I'm linking right above, but if you just want to see how Felwinters does, keep watching this one. On that same note, if you have no idea how to even get this gun, I'm also posting a video at the same time as this one showing exactly how to get it. Just didn't want to have too long of a video, so I decided to break it up into two. Want to say thanks again for all the support recently. I know I don't get these big hot ticket videos out like ASAP on the same day because I'm doing this on top of a full-time job, but I'm trying my best and I hope you guys enjoy it. Again, this video is pretty long. I go into all the details about the gun and why I think it's not actually game breaking. And if you enjoy the video, please consider leaving a like. It really helps the channel grow, especially when a video starts to pick up traction right away. But anyways, without further ado, let's jump right in. So here it is in all of its glory. Shot package is the intrinsic trait. Aggressive frame shotgun modified to have a more uniform pellet spread. And if you ended up watching my video explaining the core method that Bungie nerfed shotguns in that last patch coming into Season of the Worthy, it was all about effing us on the pellet spread. So this is really cool to see. As for perks, you've got full choke, accurized, two fantastic perks. There's nothing wrong with full choke. I know a lot of people say rifled is better right now post Season of the Worthy patch, but full choke is still plenty good. Slide shot and quick draw, opening shot and vorpal. For those of you that don't know what these are, slide shot essentially boosts your range and stability of your weapon. So for a shotgun, that's really nice because that'll increase your one-hit kill distance because now you have higher range, which means better damage drop-off. Quick draw allows you to pull your gun out faster. So essentially, if you're not running Ophidian aspects on a warlock, you always want to run quick draw, but this video isn't about that, so we'll keep going. Opening shot says improved accuracy and range on the opening shot of attack. Remember, accuracy often goes hand in hand with target acquisition, which relates to your accuracy cones and your aim assist and all that good stuff. So essentially, it just means it's going to help you make the bullet or the pellet hit your target. And then, of course, the range piece is similar to slide shot, except you don't have to slide in order to proc it. That doesn't mean it has to be the first bullet of your mag. It can be any bullet. It just has to be the opening shot. So as long as you perform an action or you wait long enough between shots, you're good to go. Last but not least, you've got vorpal weapon, increased damage against bosses, vehicles, and most importantly for PvP perspectives, guardians with their super active. We'll touch on that later. So since shot package is all the rave on why this shotgun is likely going to be so good, let's just dive into the pellet spreads. Look at how beautiful that is. When they say uniform, they're not kidding. It is not identical. What they mean by uniform is the circle will generally be the same size. The distance between the pellets will be generally the same size, which is really, really good. And then the surface area, I'll say, of this middle piece is generally the same, but it can move around a little bit and it can change angles a little bit. Here's just an example of another pellet spread right next to it. See how the angle is slightly different? Again, they're so similar, but they're not identical. And don't get me wrong, all shotguns have this similar 5 pellet in the center and then a 7 pellet circle. It's just that the other shotguns can change so much. And here you have the ADS one, a little bit smaller, still really uniform. For anyone curious, the distance that I'm at is 8 meters. And the reason I do that is because that's typically the absolute maximum one-hit kill range of aggressive shotguns. So I try and check their pellet spreads at roughly 8 meters. All right, so I took that average circumference size pellet spread from my last video on all the aggressive shotguns, put it up here next to the average of all the Felwinter pellet spreads that I did, and they look pretty well the same, right? They should. They're both aggressive shotguns. But let me color the Felwinters yellow and slap it on top. Take a look. It's actually a little bit tighter, ever so slightly, not to the point of D1 shot package. Worth noting that, yeah, it seems to be a little better, and that's probably because of its consistency. See, sometimes the Mindbenders, for example, has a pellet spread that's so big that it ends up bringing out that average circumference size. Then on the same note, if I ADS both of them, the yellow one being Felwinters and the black one behind it being the other aggressive shotguns, you can see that it's slightly different. Of course, what's most important here is recognizing that, yes, ADSing still has the same impact as always. It tightens the spread substantially, demonstrated by the red circle in behind non-ADS and the yellow circle being ADS. Now back to consistency before I get into the one-hit kill ranges. When I measured the circumference of the pellet spread across all the attempts that I made, there was plus or minus 5% in circumference size. When I go back and gather the data from my previous video where I did all the other aggressives, those things can be up to 30% off. I kid you not. You can have a hip fire mindbender shot with really, really good RNG be 30% tighter than one with really, really bad RNG. That is insane. And that is exactly why sometimes you're mapping somebody and sometimes you're asking yourself, what the hell, did I miss my shot? Same deal with ADS. I saw up to plus or minus 20% difference in pellet spread sizes. I think the reason why that percentage is slightly less is because ADS does tighten that cone, which means there's a little less room for error there. But either way, plus or minus 20% is still insane. Felwinters with ADS was also plus or minus 5% again. So super, super consistent, you guys. Damage drop off. Is the Felwinter any kind of special gun compared to others? No, not when it comes to damage drop off. It's still an aggressive frame shotgun. The fact that it has opening shot, though similar to Astral, makes a big difference. Just to show you, when you have Vorpal on at 11 meters, it does 11 to 13 damage. Same as a Mindbender. And as a reminder, that doesn't matter whether or not you're hip firing or ADS, by the way. The changes that they made with Season of the Worthy were effectively making the hip fire and ADS damage drop-offs the same. And that way they could control the effectiveness with the pellet spread only. However, when you put on opening shot, you're now doing between 14 to 16 damage. Now, the numbers in this game are often finicky, like they round up or down a lot, and it gets really annoying for people trying to analyze and do testing, but either way, you can see it's increasing your damage. All right, now let me lay some ground rules for when it comes to doing testing, especially with one-hit kill distances on shotguns. Number one, the measuring system. A lot of people out there measure with a heavy brick, and a lot of people out there measure with a Darcy. So if you're watching multiple videos and then comparing the numbers, well, you can't do that. You need to make sure you know if they're measuring the exact same way. A perfect example of that is that I think if you're measuring with the heavy brick, let's say that there's a wall right here, and the heavy brick is right here, and then your target practice guardian is standing right here. You've got mean old castle right here with a little gun. I'm not going to pretend like I'm a developer of this game. When it's saying something like 8 meters, for example, I think what it means is from the edge of the brick, or maybe even the edge of the center of the brick, all the way to the center of your person. You have to be careful with that, right? Because your pellets aren't hitting the center of the brick. Your pellets are going to hit your guardian at the front. And this distance might seem extremely negligible, but when you're talking about one-hit kill distances and you're talking about like a quarter of a meter, a half of a meter, the breaking point between 7 and 8 or 8 and 9, suddenly that actually does make a difference. On the flip side, I've kind of wondered with Darcy, is it measuring from the edge of the barrel? I don't think so, because Darcy's a sniper rifle, which would be like way out here. So I don't think that this is happening, because that would probably skew the results a lot more. So there isn't a right or wrong way. You just have to make sure you know what method that they use. Next up is the number of shots. I used to think, oh, I'll take 3 shots and that should be good enough. If I get 2 out of 3, I know it's pretty consistent. If I don't, then it's not. But the reality is that just isn't enough. I already talked about this a lot in my last video, but I'll just say that I've often gone through streaks of 4 missed shots and then 4 or 5 one-hit kill shots. So I decided that based on my experience, I like to do a minimum of 9 shots to decide whether or not something is consistent, but obviously larger the sample size, the better. Third, but certainly not least, is the test angle. And it's easier if I just play a clip from my last video. If you do your tests against a Titan that's literally the size of a garage, yeah, your pellets are gonna hit. If you do your tests against a Hunter who's kind of sideways, or a Warlock in between, the results are different. All right, Felwinter, how did you do? 6 meters from the hip, 6 out of 9. Not as good as I thought. I redid that one again, so effectively doing 18 shots, and I ended up with 13 out of 18, so it's kind of like 6 out of 9, then 7 out of 9, but still considered consistent. 6 meters ADS, 9 out of 9. Kills him every single time. 7 meters from the hip, 3 out of 9. Not great, but honestly better than the other aggressives. 7 meters ADS, 9 out of 9. So that was really nice to see. None of the shotguns before this one were killing their opponent at 7 meters 100% of the time. They were close, 7 or 8 out of 9, but not 9 out of 9. That was really nice to see here. 8 meters from the hip, still awful, to be expected, 1 out of 9. 8 meters while ADS, 2 out of 9. This is probably where you're gonna say, what? Everyone else out there is telling me that I can kill someone from 8 meters every single time. No problem, very consistent. I think I have a few ideas on why that it might be different, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. My footage showed that almost every single time it left the Guardian with a B's Dick of health very consistently, so that makes sense in relation to the pellet spread, but either way, only 2 out of 9 times. If you're wondering maybe it's because I did the test while crouched, I think that's slightly more representative of what goes on for me personally, because I'm almost always sliding when I go to shotgun someone anyways, but I then redid the test after editing this while standing in a different location too, so that I could make sure Hyper wasn't standing on like a bit of that pile of rubble or snow or whatever, and still, yet again, no different results. So I did this 3 times over, and every single time I got 2 out of 9 or 3 out of 9. So in my opinion, not consistent. I'm going to start talking about Vorpal, but I will circle back and explain why I think that those numbers make sense. Throwing up Vorpal numbers versus opening shot numbers, very different. Opening shots definitely helping. I mean, take a look at 6 meters from the hip. I mean, holy shit. 6 to 7 out of 9 versus 2 out of 9. Fortunately, when you ADS, Vorpal was still 9 out of 9. But look at 7 meters with ADS. 6 out of 9 compared to 9 out of 9. Definitely helping here, folks. Opening shot is the way to go. So why do I think that this shotgun is actually well balanced? In other words, why do I think that this thing isn't blowing all of the other aggressives out of the water? Why does it feel somewhat similar to my Mindbenders? Take a look at this picture. Do you see anything that stands out to you? To me, it was the range. 29 base range. This picture comes from d2gunsmith.com, an amazing website that lets you choose any gun in the game, strips it of all the perks or mods or all that good stuff so you know the exact base of the gun, and then you add perks one at a time and it'll modify the stats of the gun so you know what they're doing. Looking at the masterworked version that we got, you're sitting there with 47 range. Well, let's take a look at the Mindbender. A base of 36. And you might be thinking, well, Castle, what the fuck, dude? It's 7 range.
I heard range doesn't even matter.
No, range matters. Range always matters. It's just the amount that range matters that fluctuates. Sometimes in the past, it mattered a lot. Sometimes it doesn't matter as much. 7 doesn't seem like a lot, but look what the Mindbenders can reach. 63. Now you're in territory where a 63 range Mindbenders compared to a 47 ranged Felwinters is a pretty big difference. So I think that 16 range difference between the God Roll Mindbenders versus the Masterworked Felwinters is hurting the Felwinters a lot, but fortunately it's got opening shot, and I think that perk is making up that difference, so it's essentially coming out at roughly the same numbers. But then you can look at something like Astral Horizon can go up to 59 range, not quite the same as Mindbenders because it has a slightly lower base, but it can have 59 and opening shot. So I would absolutely say a God Roll Astral is better than a Felwinters in a standstill test environment when it comes to one-hit kill distances. Problem is, one's kinetic and one's energy, so you can't really compare them that much. And consistency is really important. Sometimes you just gotta walk away from standstill tests and talk about what feels most consistent, which is why I played with the damn thing today.
Hi, my name's Karen. I didn't want to reveal my face. I play Warlock, so you can suck on my Ophidians, bitch.
Okay, I might be a Titan main, but you're right. There are Warlocks out there who use the Ophidians, and I don't blame you. That shit gives you quick draw. So for those of you running that, you can use slide shot plus opening shot. At first, I didn't think this would stack, but after my tests, I'd say it definitely does. My tests are a little bit scuffed, and I'd like to find a better way to do it, but I do believe that it's working because I measure where my opponent is going to be, then I slide into that corner, which is a hard wall, I turn around, I aim, and I shoot. I do it enough times, so in this case, more than 9 times. I do it so that I can make sure I'm only grabbing the ones where my aim was really good, and then I take those 9 and see how I did. Remember when I said 8 meters, it was only killing 2 out of 9 times in the standstill test? Well, guess what? Slide shot plus opening shot, 8 out of 9 times. Almost every single time you will map someone from 8 meters, and in fact, you can actually get a 9-meter kill. That's nuts. These things are fantastic together. It's just, for someone like me, I can't really give up quick draw, so I'll just focus on closing that 1 meter gap as best I can before I shoot. On to Vorpal. Plain and simple, I don't recommend you main it. You should definitely be running opening shot, but if you're in comp or if you're in trials and you see that the other team is full of supers and you know they're gonna pop it, it wouldn't hurt to put it on. You just have to accept that it's gonna hinder your one-hit kill ability until they pop those supers. But I thought I'd show you a couple neat things. When you're using a regular shotgun and someone pops their super, you can't shotgun melee them. Actually, there's one way you can, but I'll touch on that at the end. If you're running something like a spare rations, you can't body shot and then shotgun them. You can't headshot and then shotgun them. those won't work. Resilience also doesn't matter. Even at 1 resilience, for example, those don't work. However, if you put Vorpal on, you can shotgun melee them. It's very consistent. You'll get them every time. I think the only exception that I could possibly find was on a Spectral Blade with 6 resilience or higher. Now, what actually stood out to me, though, was you can't body shot and shotgun them, but you can headshot shotgun them. And that's really cool because what I find in scrims or in comp or trials or whatever it is, I often trade with a super. I'll shotgun melee, but they'll still kill me. And that's still really good for my team because I'm getting rid of a super. But it does kind of suck because, well, I traded. With Vorpal, if you have a super coming at you, if you headshot them with your hand cannon, you can then shotgun them and put them down. The reason I like that is because that creates a little bit of distance from when you shoot your shotgun to where they are so that you're not lunging into them with your melee and putting yourself at risk of trading, especially with how the netcode in this game is. That little asterisk that I talked about is that if you run bottom tree striker, knockout actually already enables you to shotgun melee supers. So for someone like myself, I don't really need Vorpal anyways, but either way, pretty effective super on an aggressive shotgun. So my overall thoughts, great shotgun. Not the best one in the game in my opinion, but probably better than every roll you'll find because it's so easy to get. That's exactly the point. It's so impossible to get the absolute perfect mindbenders, for example, that this is something that I think a lot of people should use. This shotgun is wonderful, and I really like that the pellet spread is consistent. That's the direction that shotguns should be going in my opinion. So that was pretty sweet to see. I think they're doing that to try and show people that they're ready to give people easier guns with less RNG now that sunsetting is going to be a thing, but who knows? I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you made it to this point, say, holy shit, I love dogs.
Peace.